Stand tall, walk proud, and have a little faith. Garth Brooks. Some people bow their heads after a few failures, viewing themselves as crushed leaves in the storm of life. But there are also those who, despite a heart full of stitches, still hold their heads high and walk forward like warriors crossing a battlefield without letting the dust cloud their eyes. That is not arrogance. That is dignity. It is a silent declaration. I may hurt, but I will not fall. People often think strength lies in muscles or power, but true strength lies in the ability to keep walking when the mind is full of doubt. There are days when life resembles an endless dark corridor where every door is closed and the only echo is our own fear. In those moments, faith becomes a tiny candle in the storm. It does not dispel all the darkness, but it is enough for us to see the next step. And sometimes, just one more step is all it takes to escape the abyss of despair. Walking with pride does not mean you have never been hurt. On the contrary, it is often the sign of a soul that has weathered the storm. Calm waters do not make skilled sailors. It is the rough waves that teach us how to hold the helm. Life is the same. Betrayals, sleepless nights of loneliness, moments of feeling worthless, all are silent furnaces forging the depth of character. Those who have walked through the dark often understand the value of light more than anyone else. When people stop believing they deserve happiness, they begin to shrink their souls, locking themselves in an invisible cage of insecurity and fear. But life has never required us to be perfect. It only asks us to keep walking. A tree keeps reaching up even when bent by the wind. A mountain does not bow to the storm. And so should humans, standing tall in adversity, walking with self-respect, and keeping a little faith in their hearts that dawn always exists behind the night. Because sometimes, just by believing, we are already far stronger than our fate. Whatever you want in life, other people are going to want it too. Believe in yourself enough to accept the idea that you have an equal right to it. What makes people suffer is not their lack of ability, but their silent belief that they are unworthy. They look at others' success like looking at the lights of a distant castle, beautiful, brilliant, but not belonging to them. And so they withdraw from their own dreams before life even has a chance to reject them. People often live in silent systems of comparison. They see others as smarter, wealthier, more beautiful, and gradually turn admiration into insecurity. But life has never operated on the principle of whoever is more perfect is more deserving. The sky is not meant only for the strongest bird. The ocean does not reject a small river just because it starts from a narrow ravine. Every human is born with the right to dream, to love, to succeed, and to live a meaningful life. That right does not need to be granted by anyone. It exists from the moment you cry your first tear. Sadly, many people seat themselves in the back row of life. They apologize for their presence, hesitate to express their opinions, or fear pursuing what they want, as if their desires were selfish. Those who constantly demean themselves are like travelers in a desert who insist they do not deserve to drink water. The more they doubt their worth, the more opportunities they lose. And eventually, that very hesitation creates the life they fear. Life does not award prizes to those who see themselves as small. It is the ability to look directly at yourself and say, I am human too. I also have the right to move forward. A seed does not need to become a whole forest to deserve to sprout. It only needs to believe in its instinct to rise. Humans are the same. Those who dare to believe they have the right to touch goodness are usually courageous enough to act, while others are still doubting. Self-belief is not arrogance, not blind pride. It opens doors for those who dare to enter. And the moment you truly believe your desires are as valuable as anyone else's in this world, you will no longer live like a shadow on the margins of life. You will stand tall, walk with self-respect, and understand that happiness is not the privilege of a select few, it is a capacity that every soul has the right to pursue. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you've imagined. Henry David Thoreau. The greatest tragedy of life is living so long in hesitation that you forget you once had a dream. Many people exist like boats tied tightly to a safe harbor, never sunk by waves, but never knowing how vast the ocean is. They live by fear rather than by aspiration, only for the years to slip away like sand through their fingers, while their hearts slowly grow barren from things they never dared to try. People often think they need to be perfect before they begin, like waiting for calm seas before learning to sail. Confidence is not the certainty that you will not fail. It is the decision to walk even when you are trembling inside. A young eagle does not know it can fly the first time it plunges from a cliff, but it is that seemingly dangerous fall that awakens its wings. Life is the same. Those who dare to move forward often discover their strength along the way, not before they begin. Dreams are not a luxury reserved for a few special people. They are the deep voice of the self, wanting to live up to its potential. When a person abandons their dreams for too long, invisible voids begin to appear in their soul. They still laugh, still work, still exist among the crowd, but inside, they feel as though they are living someone else's life. That is why many people have everything but still feel empty, because they trade aspiration for safety and sacrifice themselves for the acceptance of the world. Living the life you've imagined does not mean that life will be perfect. Even the tallest mountains endure blizzards. But there is a vast difference between being tired from pursuing what you love and being exhausted from living against who you are. Those who follow their dreams may fall hard, but a light still shines in their eyes. It is the light of meaning, the thing that makes us strong enough to walk through hardships without losing our soul. Life is shorter than we think. One day, what regrets us most will usually not be our failures, but the times we lacked the courage to try. Walk toward your dreams like a tree reaching for the sun, silent yet intense. Believe that you have the right to live a life that makes your heart stir. And sometimes, just by daring to start, you have already outrun the version of yourself that lived in fear. When you have faith in God, you don't have to worry about the future. You just know that everything is in His hands. You just go ahead and do your best. Elder Bryan Mathison. People often suffer not because the present is too cruel, but because their minds are stretched thin between thousands of assumptions about tomorrow. They want to control everything, to know the outcomes beforehand, to ensure that no loss or pain awaits them. But the tighter they try to grasp life, the more exhausted they become, like someone trying to hold water with trembling fingers. Faith emerges as a profound psychological release. It does not remove difficulties, but it prevents us from being crushed by anxiety. When someone truly believes a greater power is guiding their life, their soul begins to let go of panic. They understand they do not need to see the entire path to take the next step. Just like a night traveler who only needs enough light for the first few steps, faith does not give us all the answers, but it gives us the peace to keep moving forward. Many people live as if the future is a storm, always waiting to destroy them. They stay up late over things that have not happened, torturing themselves with the worst-case scenarios. The more they worry, the more they lose the ability to live fully in the present. The fear of the future is like a giant shadow. The more you run away, the longer it stretches behind you. Faith teaches us another way. Instead of trying to control every outcome, focus on today's actions. Do the right thing, live kindly, try your best. As for the rest, let life unfold in its own way. This does not mean being passive or leaving things to fate. A boat must still set its sails even if it trusts the wind. True faith does not make people weak. It makes them stronger because they are no longer paralyzed by fear. They understand that failure is not the end, suffering is not abandonment, and sometimes closed doors only lead to a better path they cannot yet see. There is a beautiful peace in those who live by faith. They do not always have an easy life, but in their eyes lies the steadfastness of those who know they are not alone. And perhaps that is what people seek their whole lives, not a perfect future, but a heart peaceful enough to walk through any future. Believe in yourself and everything else will fall into place. Trust in your abilities, work hard, and there is nothing you cannot do. Brad Henry. The greatest barrier for humans is rarely their circumstances. It usually lies in the quiet doubt they have for themselves. A person can endure poverty, failure, or long days of loneliness, but when they lose belief in their own abilities, their soul begins to collapse from within. It is like a lamp that is still intact but has lost its light. People often look at successful individuals and think they possess something special that they themselves lack. But the most profound difference is sometimes simply this: they dare to believe they can go beyond their current limits. Belief in oneself is a strange kind of psychological strength. It makes people rise one more time after failure, try again when the whole world thinks they should give up, and keep walking even when the outcome is still unclear. A seed never looks down at the dark soil and concludes that it will be buried forever. It silently takes root, reaches toward the light, and somehow breaks through the cold, hard ground to grow into a large tree. Humans are the same. But true belief is not about sitting still and waiting for a miracle to happen. Many people want success, but fear sweat. They want to reach the mountaintop, but do not want to climb steep slopes covered in sharp rocks. Hard work is the bridge between dreams and reality. When we continuously take action, the brain begins to build a sense of competence. Every small step forward is like another brick laid upon the foundation of confidence. No one is born strong. They become strong through the days they refuse to give up. The most terrifying thing is not failure, but living with the belief that you are helpless. Someone who always thinks they cannot do something will lock themselves in an invisible cage created by their own mind. They do not dare to try, do not dare to step forward, and then call their life fate. But in reality, many limits only exist because we have not gone far enough to break them. The ocean does not know its strength until it meets a storm. Humans, too, do not know their true capabilities until challenges push them to their absolute limits. Life does not promise that every journey will be easy. There will be days when you feel you are moving too slowly, and nights filled with doubt and exhaustion. But if you still believe in yourself, you still have a fire that the world cannot extinguish. For when someone possesses both belief and perseverance, they become the most astonishing thing on earth, a being that can turn pain into strength, failures into lessons, and what was once deemed impossible into reality. Faith and prayer are the vitamins of the soul. Man cannot live healthily without them. Mahalia Jackson. We often care for our bodies with food, sleep, and medicine, but we forget that the soul also has silent hungers. There are people who look strong on the outside but are exhausted within, like a tree that still stands tall but whose roots have begun to decay. They live in crowded cities but still feel lonely, having every convenience while their minds remain constantly anxious. That is when we realize that material things can fill a room, but they do not always fill the heart. Faith is like the invisible oxygen of the spirit. It gives us the sense that this life is not just a sequence of random chaos, but carries a meaning far greater than what the naked eye can see. With faith, we no longer find ourselves alone amidst life's challenges. They understand that even in suffering, there is a purpose, just as a seed must lie in darkness before sprouting toward the light. It is that very belief that helps us endure seasons when reason is not strong enough to explain or sustain us. Prayer also carries a special psychological power. Many think prayer is merely asking God for something, but more deeply, it is a moment for the soul to breathe. In a noisy world, prayer is like a rare silence to face oneself. When a person bows their head in prayer, they lay down the heavy burdens they have struggled to carry all day. It is the moment when fear is named, wounds are acknowledged, and the heart is allowed to be fragile without shame. Humans cannot bear prolonged pressure without a place to release it. Prayer becomes a spiritual sanctuary that helps them find peace amidst chaos. There are times when life feels like an endless winter. All hope seems frozen, every door silent. But during those periods, faith acts as the silent sap within the withered tree. We cannot see it with our eyes, but because of it, spring eventually returns. Those with faith are not people who have never despaired. They are those who keep a tiny light in their hearts even when walking through the deepest darkness. Humans can live many days without food, many hours without sleep, but it is hard to live long in a state of a completely empty soul. Everyone needs something to cling to when life becomes too heavy. And perhaps faith and prayer are the deepest nutrients, sustaining hope, healing invisible fractures in the mind, and helping us keep walking without losing ourselves. The purpose of life is to live it, to taste experience to the utmost, to reach out eagerly and without fear for newer and richer experience. Eleanor Roosevelt. Many people go through life like a shadow, waking up, working, smiling out of habit, and then falling asleep with an unnameable feeling of emptiness. They live so safely that they lose the ability to truly feel. But life was never created merely for humans to exist like machines, repeating yesterday in the guise of today. Humans are born to feel, to explore, to love, to hurt, to fail, to rise, and to understand that those very experiences are what create the depth of the soul. Living fully does not mean chasing after every frivolous pleasure. It is the ability to be completely present in every moment of one's life. Some people go through spring without ever smelling the flowers, go through love without ever truly opening up, and go through youth always fearing the gaze of others. They are like people standing at the edge of the ocean, only daring to dip their toes in the water. Meanwhile, life is most beautiful when we dare to plunge into new experiences with all the sincerity of our hearts. For every experience, whether joyful or painful, is a piece of the puzzle that shapes the identity of a mature person. Fear is the greatest invisible prison of the mind. Many people do not fail because they lack ability, but because they fear stepping out of their comfort zone. They fear rejection, fear hurt, fear loss, and fear that they are not good enough. The more they avoid life, the more they lose the feeling of being alive. A ship is safest when in harbor, but that is not what it was built for. Humans are the same. The soul only truly matures when it dares to sail through uncharted waters. Some experiences will break your heart, but they also teach you how to love more deeply. Some failures make us lose our direction, but they open the door to a stronger version of ourselves. Life is not a painting of only bright colors. It is the dark shades that make the light shine so brilliantly. Those who have never hurt will find it hard to understand the value of peace. Those who have never suffered loss will find it hard to fully appreciate the beauty of what they have. Living eagerly and without fear does not mean never trembling. It is when we still step forward even though our hearts are full of doubt. It is daring to love despite being hurt, daring to start despite failing, and daring to dream despite being disappointed by life many times. For in the end, what regrets us most is usually not the times we tried and fell, but the moments we lacked the courage to live true to our desires. Life is a brief but magical journey, and perhaps its greatest meaning lies not in how long we exist, but in how deeply we have lived. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. Albert Einstein. Knowledge is like bricks already laid out, while imagination is the ability to see a castle before it is built. We can memorize thousands of pages, but if our minds do not know how to dream, or how to ask questions beyond what already exists, we will only live in the cage of what has been proven. Knowledge gives us answers, but imagination creates new questions. And it is those very questions that have changed the world. Before humans could fly into the sky, someone was crazy enough to imagine touching the clouds. Before electricity lit up cities, a mind dared to look at the darkness and believe it could be conquered. Every invention, every artwork, and every spiritual revolution was born where imagination surpassed the limits of reality. If knowledge is the map, then imagination is the wings. Yet, the strange thing is that as we grow up, we often lose our capacity for imagination. A child can look at the clouds and see kingdoms, look at the sea and hear the call of adventure. But adults, after too many disappointments, begin to believe only in what can be measured. They live so realistically that their souls become dry and rigid. They fear dreaming big because they fear ridicule, and fear being different because they fear rejection. Gradually, they make themselves prisoners of invisible limits. This is the silent tragedy of so many. They do not lack intelligence. They only lack the courage to imagine that their lives could be different. Imagination is not an escape from reality. It is the capacity to expand reality. Someone with a strong imagination often sees opportunities where others only see walls. They understand that every limit of today can become the norm of tomorrow. We often act according to the image we create of ourselves in our mind. If a person only imagines themselves as small, they will live a cramped life. But if they dare to envision a stronger, freer, and more meaningful version, the mind will begin to lead them to corresponding actions. Our lives are first created in our minds before they manifest in reality. A seed always carries the image of the entire forest within it. Humans are the same. Within every soul lie unawakened potentials, unexplored horizons. And sometimes, what changes destiny is not how much you know, but who you dare to imagine you can become. For knowledge gives us the foundation to stand firm, but it is imagination that empowers us to fly far beyond the limits of the old world. It's the possibility of having a dream come true that makes life interesting. Paulo Coelho. The aspiration to rise above current limits to create a meaningful life. For if we only live to repeat familiar things, life gradually becomes like an old clock still ticking but no longer vibrating with life. What makes our hearts light up has never been mere existence, but the feeling that we are drawing closer to something once thought impossible. Dreams are the fire that keeps the soul from turning cold. A person who no longer dreams often lives like a bird that has forgotten the sky. They work, eat, and laugh, but deep inside there exists a weariness hard to name. We need something larger than the present to strive for. Not because we are greedy, but because the soul was born to develop, to explore, and to transcend itself. A seed cannot be happy if it remains forever beneath the earth. Its nature is to rise and find the light. Humans are the same. If we do not pursue what makes our hearts stir, we will gradually feel life losing its color. The most wonderful thing lies not in the dream itself, but in the journey of turning it into reality. It is that process that changes us. Tempering nights, failures, moments of self-doubt, all are like fire tempering steel. A person who pursues their dreams for a long time is rarely the same person they used to be. They are stronger, deeper, and clearly understand the value of every small step forward. True achievement is not just reaching the goal, but becoming a more mature version of oneself on the way to it. Many people abandon their dreams not because they lack ability, but because they fear failure. They look at the distance between the present and what they desire and conclude it is too far. But every great thing in the world once started as a tiny thought in someone's mind. A city is built from the first brick. A piece of music starts with a single note. A life worth living also begins the moment you dare to believe that your dream is worth pursuing. Failure sometimes hurts, but what kills the soul faster is giving up. For when they abandon their dreams, they do not just lose a goal, they lose a part of the light within themselves. Those without hope often live like an endless winter, cold, silent, and devoid of life. Meanwhile, those who still dare to dream, no matter how difficult, still carry a special spark in their eyes. That is the light of someone living for something greater than fear. Life becomes interesting not because it is always easy, but because it gives us the chance to turn the seemingly impossible into the possible. And perhaps the most beautiful moment of life is not when standing on the summit, but when looking back at the path traveled and realizing the dream that once only existed in the mind has now become reality through one's own courage and perseverance. To be what we are and to become what we are capable of becoming is the only end of life. Robert Louis Stevenson. Some people spend decades chasing validation, trying to wear masks that fit the expectations of family, society, or the crowd. They laugh at what others deem right, choose paths others deem safe, and gradually lose their true voice within. It is a very profound form of spiritual loss when a person exists, but their soul is no longer allowed to live truthfully. Becoming yourself is a much harder journey than imitating others, because it requires facing the fear of rejection. The crowd always prefers conformity, whereas true individuality often makes people feel insecure. A tree cannot grow in the shape of the tree beside it. A bird cannot learn to fly by living its whole life on the ground. Humans are the same. Each person carries a unique spiritual structure, a distinct capability, and a personal calling. And when trying to live against one's nature for too long, an invisible void will grow larger and larger within. It does not stop at just being yourself. It is also about becoming what we are capable of becoming. This is the most profound point, because so many people live far below their true potential. Not because they lack ability, but because they are bound by fear, procrastination, and self-doubt. They are like seeds that never dare to sprout because they are too afraid of the storm outside. But the nature of a seed is not to lie still in the ground. It was born to grow into a tree, to reach for the sky, and to bloom in its own way. The more they deny their potential, the easier it is to feel dissatisfied with life. That is why many people, despite having stable jobs, money, or recognition, still feel empty. Because deep down, they know they are not truly living up to their abilities and aspirations. Nothing makes the soul more weary than betraying oneself a little more each day. Life does not require us to become a perfect version. It only asks us to constantly grow into our most authentic version. A river does not need to become an ocean immediately. It only needs to keep flowing in its direction. Humans are the same. Every time we overcome fear, every time we dare to live truthfully, every time we strive to get closer to the person we can become, that is already a profound victory of the soul. Perhaps the greatest meaning of life does not lie in what others think of us, but in whether we finally have the courage to look back and say, I did not live as a copy. I became the very person I was born to be.